I think I was dying. That's how I felt when I started dieting. I was losing a pound a day. That is half a kilo. In 70 days, I lost 70 pounds. But my goal was not to lose weight. That's not the goal. The goal was to get to feel better.
Hello, fellow carnivores. We're here talking today with PJ, and I'm just going to let him take it away. He's got a great story that you guys are going to love.
Hi, Chad. I'm happy
Hello.
to be chatting with you, and I'll try to talk about my journey in the most interesting way possible. Uh, I'm 70 years old, and I started to do. I got ready to go on carnivore. I started 5 years ago, but I'm more strict carnivore since 2 years ago. So I've been carnivore for 2 years. I studied uh, um, health issues on YouTube, looking at videos and reading books, and mostly seeking information from doctors, functional medicine doctors, to get myself ready. And I watch a lot of videos and people on different kinds of diet for 2 years until I started dieting to improve my health in 2020. Early 2020 was January. So the first 6 months of my dieting, I went keto, and for about 6 months. Then I went paleo, which is not a big difference. I'll explain it a little bit. And I stayed on paleo for 1 year before I went carnivore, full carnivore. That was in June 2021. And now we're past June 2023. So it's a little bit over 2 years. So my story is that I think I was dying. That's how I felt when I started dieting. And even in those conditions, it took me 2 years to prepare myself. And the reason is I had so much in my head to try to figure out what would be best for me, and I wasn't sure I could do it. My grandfather on my father's side died of a heart condition when he was 70, and my father died at 73 of a bad heart condition. And I was nearing 70 years old. I was overweight, and I had all kinds of problems, including high blood pressure and kidney stones since I was 25 years old. And I had other issues that were burgeoning, coming out, emerging, like prostate inflammation, snoring like crazy, could not sleep, could not rest, was tired all the time, and other problems of autoimmune nature, and in particular arthritis. I have a special kind of arthritis. It's called ankylosing spondylitis, and it's an arthritis in your backbone. So you start to bend and not be able to stand straight, have more and more difficulty to walk, and of course, due to compression of your spinal cord in your backbone, you start to have all kinds of pains in your legs and whatnot. So the point I reached when I started my diet is I basically could not sleep. I had to go and pee every hour, half an hour, and I had pains that were unbelievable in my legs and my back. So much so that some days I could not even walk from my bedroom to the washroom. I had to wait and massage my legs and whatnot. And I was weighing about 300 pounds then at my peak. And after I started the keto diet, things started to improve and very fast in the beginning. I'll get back to that. I just want to go back a little bit to my background, what took me there. I am professionally, I'm a geological engineer. That means I'm a professional engineer. I'm trained in engineering. So the way I think, and I was trained, is I think mechanically about what I'm doing and what's going on in the world. And I was trying to understand why my health was deteriorating. Everybody would say, well, you're just getting older and whatnot. Because when I was young, I didn't have any problems. I know that some people had problems with obesity when they're very young, and other health problems when they're very young. And with a carnivore diet, they get out of it. But I didn't capture that in the beginning of my studies for to improve my health. Because when I was young, I was healthy. I was practicing sports. I like outdoors, mountain climbing, skiing, so on and so forth. I'm a bad Canadian. I don't skate, so I don't play hockey. But I was doing a lot of sports. I love outdoors. So this is why I chose geology and mining, because I wanted to get out away from the city. My father disliked cities a lot, and I did too, and I still do. I live in the suburbs today, but my idea is to get away from the city and live in a peaceful small town, and so on and so forth. So I did that when I started to work in the mining district of Canada, because I live in Canada. Um, there were so many mines that you could change jobs without having to move. That's a luxury in mining. Usually in mining, if you change job, you need to change. You have to move, change cities, sometimes change country. So for about 15 years, I was lucky enough to live in the same area, which is Rouyn-Noranda in Quebec, and change jobs without having to move. And in the mining industry where I work, as a geologist, you have to walk a lot every day. You have to go and visit the site, the mining sites, or go in the woods and where there's no roads, and you find outcrops and you break the rock and you bring back samples. So I would carry, 20 kilograms or whatever, 50, up to 50 pounds of rock samples on my shoulders, going in and out of the woods and so on and so forth. So I was in pretty good shape. But I had the first health crisis when I was 25 at the university. I had kidney stones. And you'll see there's a big connection with carnivore diet that's important. We don't hear too much about kidney stones in the carnivore diet environment, but I have my own story about that. So 25 years old, I have kidney stones. I have to go to the emergency at the hospitals. I was dying of pains. They say the pain is as bad as giving birth for women. So I don't know about that, but my pain were quite severe. And so I had one crisis and then another. I had three times I had to go to the emergency at the hospital between the age of 25 and about 40 years old. And the doctors, after the first one, when I was 26, told me, yeah, I'm going to put you on diuretics, on pills, to help your kidneys eliminate the stones. And I said, no, thank you. I said, I don't want to take a pill. How long do I have to take that pill? He said, for life. I said, forget it. I said, you can use my body as a cobaye for a scientific study. There must be a university that does studies on kidney stones and can tell you why. If I know why I have kidney stones, then I can take action. If not, I'm not going to take a pill for the sake of taking a pill that will destroy my kidneys. Why was I reacting like that? Well, because my father was a pharmacist. And my father teach me that medications are designed to be sold, not to be taken. What was he trying to say? My father had also studied medicine for 2 years, so he really knew what he was talking about. Doctors constantly called him to get advice. I said, why is it that so many doctors call you? Well, he said they know nothing about medicine. They're not trained in pharmacology. They don't. They have a limited knowledge about pills and drugs, and they follow the advice of the salesmen who sell them, who go and meet them to sell their drugs. So they say this drug is good for heart. Okay, so they prescribe it to their patients. So they call me because they need some advice, and because I studied a little bit in medicine for 2 years, they like to call me because I understand them. So I said, that's interesting. And you're telling me that pills are made to sell, not to take? He said, well, people need to take some pills sometimes, but the less you take, the better. So I refused to take pills for my kidney stones. And I said, put me in the lab and study me as much as you want. Give my body to science. Tell me why I have kidney stones. So I went to the university lab and they did some tests on me and they determined very quickly that I was doing stones of calcium oxalate. Okay, calcium oxalate is, I think, my understanding is 80% of people who have kidney stones do those stones. So it's calcium with oxalates. Oxalates does not exist in meat. There's no oxalates in meat. I didn't know that. I didn't even know how come I have stones of oxalate because calcium. So I continued my life and had a second and a third event. And the third event, I was working in the mines then. I went to the hospital and I had the luck of encountering a doctor, an urologist specialized in kidneys, who had studied in the Middle East. He was, I think, he was Turkish, but anyway. So I said to him, "Can you help me find the cause?" Because again, he would prescribe me diuretics, and I said, "I don't want to take pills." Uh, so he said, "Well, what do you eat?" Now that was the one and only doctor in my life who asked me what I eat. Okay. And I always had, because of my father influence and that doctor in particular, the intuition that if you're sick, it's because of something you eat. And the first thing you need to do is look at what you eat before taking a pill. So he said, "What do you eat?" So I said, "Well, I have an intuition that maybe it's because of chocolate sundaes, ice cream with chocolate." I said, "I eat it in the summer. I eat more than usual, and I have kidney stones mostly in the fall." Well, I said, "That's it." So I said, "Bingo." So I said, "What do I do?" Well, he said, "Drink a lot of water and pass the stones, or stop eating chocolate with ice cream." So I reduced my intake of chocolate ice cream and tried to control my chocolate eating chocolate because ice cream has calcium, high calcium, and chocolate has high oxalate. And he said the other foods are kale and spinach and so on and so forth. So I was careful. And what I did is I continued to have kidney stones all of my life until I went on the diet that I'm talking about now. But the difference is I was controlling myself in the food intake, and when I had problems, when I felt my kidneys were going to release some stones, I would drink a lot of water and would flush them out. And I saw the stones in the toilet bowl, and I could pick them up and bring it to show them to my doctor. So the doctor said, "Well, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
You manage it and continue to manage it. And the only thing I can do is give you a pill. I don't want a pill." So I manage it that way. So I not to, just to finish on that story, I'm going to jump ahead. So I carried that with me for a long time. And when I got into my 50s, I'm 70 now, I started to gain weight and have other problems that showed up, like high blood pressure, tachycardia, that is a high heartbeat rhythm, and other problems started to pop up. I had arthritis, as I mentioned before. I had eye inflammation due to my arthritis, is associated with the arthritis that I have. And all these, many of these factors indicate I have problems to metabolize calcium. So calcium oxalate stones, and so on and so forth. So I did a lot of research because I had so many problems. I was, for my worst problems, I was taking up to 12 medicines regularly. Four medicines just for my cardiovascular problems, and a pill for my prostate inflammation, eye inflammation, pains in my legs, arthritis, pain. And the problem is that when I was taking the medicine, I mean, you look at all the side effects. Being the son of a pharmacist, I look at the side effects all the time. Never paid too much attention to that, but my uh, drug for arthritis is raising blood pressure. So the doctor raised my blood pressure medicine. So I ended up, with 12 drugs that are competing to make me sick, you know. So I wanted to get off the drugs, but the main thing that I focused on was sleeping. I said, if I can't sleep, I'm not going to be able to recover from all my illness. So I went. I worked with my doctors. I went to the sleep clinic, and they gave me this CPAP machine to help me breathe at night, so I don't wake up because of apnea. So that worked. I started to sleep well in December 2019, just when COVID started, just before COVID. Anyway, the point is, I started to sleep much better and feel better. I said, well, let Christmas go by, and drank my wine, ate my chocolate cake, and eat my roast beef, and decided to start keto. Why keto? I already had started to read books from Dr. Terry Wall, for example, who was doing paleo and got out of her wheelchair with multiple sclerosis, and Dr. Stephen Gundry was inclined towards vegetarianism and so on. But he's talking about gluten and lectins and so on and so forth, intoxication and whatnot. So I read a lot of stuff, but I started mildly with keto because keto is popular. But I noticed very quickly that keto is so popular. There's a lot of commercial stuff like keto candies, keto chocolates, keto. I was very careful. The first thing that I did is I pay attention to a doctor called Chris Noby. His book here, latest book, Ancestral Diet Revolution. Chris Noby. The one thing that I learned from him is cut off all sugar and all carbs if you can, including vegetable oils, because this will kill you. So that's what I did starting in January 2020. And it made a big, big, big change. Now, all the carbohydrates are molecules of complex sugar molecules, actually. The first thing you do in your digestive system when you eat bread or pasta is the pasta or the bread is broken down into sugar molecules. Turns into sugar right away, and your insulin will spike, and you will start to have eventually insulin resistance and whatnot. So I don't want to go into too much technical stuff. I just want to describe a little bit my pathway, how I found my way out of misery. So I started to sleep better and dream a little bit more, and I started to lose weight. Now, I say the first 70 days, I was pissing my fat. I was close to 300 pounds. Now I'm about 185. I, uh, I was losing a pound a day. That is half a kilo. In 70 days, I lost 70 pounds, 45, I'm sorry, 30, about 30 kilos. So, yeah, I felt better, of course, but my goal was not to lose weight. That's not the goal. The goal was to get to feel better, to feel better, and not to die shortly in misery. And so, after a few months of keto, I did accomplish some roadways, but I was not at my ideal weight, and I was plateauing. I was going flatline. So I said it's time to change gear. I went in second gear, and I went paleo. So as far as I'm concerned, I always like food, love food, except when I was young. When I was young, I only ate like meat, you know. So I'm going back in my infancy actually, because when I was young, I didn't like vegetables. I didn't like bread. I didn't like potatoes and carrots. I spit on all those, and I only wanted to eat mincemeat, meatballs, hamburgers, hamburger meat, or steak, if you wish. But I was sugar addicted when I was a kid. It was here in Quebec, in particular, where I have a very strong tendency to be sugar addicted, maybe because of maple syrup. Okay, we're big producers of maple syrup, and sugar is in our traditions. My mother used to make sugar pies, this thick. Sugar pies is fantastic. It's 1 pound of butter, which is good, 1 pound of sugar, and 1 pound of fat cream, 35%. So the cream and the butter is okay, but the sugar is bad. It's like, really fantastic. But it kills you slowly. Well, actually, it doesn't kill you. I shouldn't say that. because I think the American standard diet is not killing people, just make them sick. So they eat all the time as much garbage as they can and take pills, but don't die, please. Go to the hospital, go to your insurance company, do some good business for the insurance company, for the hospitals, for the drug makers, pharmaceutical industry, but don't die, not right now. Last as long as possible, and put all your money into healthcare. So I disliked that very much, and I didn't want to take medicines, but I was on 12 medicine and I was dying. So I jumped on the keto. Keto, I flatlined after 6 months about. So I went on paleo. Paleo was, I always liked to cook, so I would make a big bowl of salad. It took me an hour to do it with everything, including spinach, kale, and everything you want. And I made my own dressing with olive oil and cider, apple cider vinegar, and a big steak beside it. Now, all my life, I love meat, fatty meat. I like meat on the bone. I prefer beef, but I eat every kind of meat, including organ meat. My grandfather on my mother's side was a butcher, and him and my father worked as a busboy when I was a student in a very big hotel. And my father teach me how to eat the best cut of meat. If anything, I would eat prime roast beef all of my life when I was young. And my grandfather, who was a butcher, taught me how to eat all kinds of meat, especially organ meat. So I eat my liver, poached, fried, whatever. And I learned to also eat, and I like the taste. Now I know a lot of people don't like the organ meat, but I was taught when I was young to appreciate the taste, the different tastes, textures of liver. I love liver. I like it not very well cooked, not cooked too much, rare. I find it more sweet that way. I love kidneys. I love heart. I eat tongue. I eat tripes, the intestines and whatnot. Well, we do when we eat sausage anyway. And when we eat sausage, we eat a lot of organs, if you don't know, organ meat. And the last thing that I learned to like was sheep testicles. So when I was on carnivore, I had problems with my hormones, and I started to have erectile problems. So what I did is, after I learned that you could eat, you could be prescribed testosterones, but if you can eat testicles, it will help too. Well, I tried Viagra and I tried the testicles, and I'm going to tell you, forget about Viagra. Go for the testicles if you can. Now, people will find that yucky, but let me just tell you, eating lamb or sheep testicles, if you wish, is just like boiled egg. It's just the texture and the taste of the white egg in a boiled egg. Okay, nothing else. If you don't put spices and salt on it, it tastes nothing. You can fry it in butter or you can boil it, whatever you want. Just have to take the skin off so it doesn't pop and explode like a popcorn, and eat it. Now, if you dislike it, it's okay. But I'm going to tell you something. One measure of a man's health, okay, is that. It's typical. Even babies have male babies, not women, not girls, but men. They have erections in their sleep. Erections in their sleep, and you wake up sometimes with an erection. Okay. Well, I didn't have those anymore. Well, I do now, and I have good ones. Hard like a stick for a half an hour, up to an hour. Try that. But I don't eat testicles as often as I did when I started to try them. When I started, I was buying 5 kilogram bags. That's over 10 pounds. And I would eat them once in a while. It would take me 1 or 2 months to eat it. Basically, this is carnivore, and I restored that part of my health. And the other thing that's good about having a lot of testosterone in your blood is prostate inflammation. I was on the border of having prostate cancer. I was taking, medicine for that. I had to go to the toilet you won't feel like peeing all the time. You go to the toilet every half an hour, every hour. That went away with the carnivore completely. Kidney stones, back to my kidney stones. Isn't that so right that red meat in particular, is bad for your kidneys? All those proteins are going to overload your kidneys and kill your kidneys. You're going to have to go on dialysis. Not true. Not true. The only way I could fully restore the health of my kidneys was on carnivore, not keto, not paleo, because on those two other different style of diets, you still eat a lot of vegetables, and especially leafy green vegetables, kale and spinach. So uh, that's how I got out of problems with my kidneys, my prostate, and so many other things. But I still have problems after 2 years straight on carnivore. I have problems to apply the carnivore rule. I have problems with some of my health issues still. So I don't know. I think that I know from looking at your videos, Chad, that we share
Mhm.
some features in our journey. I don't know if you want to say a word about that before I speak a little bit more where I've been in the last 2 years with in this journey.
No, I think we do. We were talking about that. I know. See, I did keto for a year. What I found interesting is that you didn't go paleo keto because that kind of, I always say paleo is like a very loose keto. It opens up more options. And then keto is a little tighter than carnivore is just a subset of keto,
Yeah,
which is interesting because I had known about paleo and I didn't really do too much of it, but I kind of tried to take that philosophy of just eating good stuff for you. But of course, we were told grains are good.
yeah,
Okay, so I didn't have the little packets of oatmeal with the sugar already in there and just dump it in. I would get the stone cut, or whatever, Coach's oats and things. And I know for me, doing the 1 year of keto versus the 3.5 years of carnivore, as I say, keto, I found the door to health, but it didn't open. And carnivore opened that door to health.
yeah,
It's like I was at the edge and I could tell there was something about this. But as we talked about earlier, I was eating junk keto. I didn't eat the keto snacks, but I made the keto snacks, which is the same indifference. And I've always said this about things, and I know we're going to agree on this 100% probably. Sugar is grass. They process the grass and it becomes sugar. Stevia is a leaf. They process that. There's these sweeteners are sweeteners, and that trigger in the brain and having these sweet things, I think, is some of the problem with this modern way of eating whenever humans brought in sweetness and sugar from something else than just fruit. And I'm not even against people having fruit once in a while, but we know the fruits weren't as sweet as they used to be.
yeah,
And I think just over the years, we've had such this change of how we look at food, and it's gotten so industrialized, as we both know,
yeah,
and we look at that the same. I think you and I are very, is it analytical is the word I'm looking for?
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
test things and we want to know the root cause. Like you with your kidneys. And I laugh because it's like, no, I don't want this. I want to know why. Don't
yeah,
tell me this is blue just to be blue. I want to know why it's this way.
yeah,
I have to know the root cause of it. And that's something that I struggled with, I think, early on. Like when I tried the juicing thing, which was the worst experience. Oh, is you're healing. That pain you feel is healing. And I'm just like, that just doesn't
go away.
seem right. Like if I have a tooth decay and I go to the dentist, it goes away, but this is getting worse.
Yeah,
So I think that journey of ours with that same time frame, we're close enough in age, within the decade of each other. that also, I'd like to pose one question for you, then go on. How do you look at it now, aging? I was really afraid of 60 in a sense of like, oh, I'm getting old. I know this is what happens. And all the doctors said, you're old, face it. You're never going to have the weight of your youth. You're never going to have this flexibility back. You're always going to have these joint pains in the morning, get up to go to the bathroom. That's just part of being old. And I laugh because all that's gone.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel now looking back at what you're told is being old and where you're feeling now that everybody's blind to, it seems, except for some of the ultra healthy eaters?
Yeah. Right now, I feel much better. When I started, I thought I was dying. I would be dead in a matter of months or very few years. I was focusing on my father, my grandfather's early death, if you wish, if you consider 70 to be young, relatively young. I was getting that age, so I thought my turn has come. And that's what my cousins say also, because they say in our family there's a trend that men die around their 70s of heart conditions. And I had a heart condition. And but there's one thing that I will say that is maybe shocking to some people, but I don't want to shock anybody. Uh, I chat with Chad about this just before we started to record the session, and I'm not a religious person, and I the people that are religious, like my wife is Mexican, and she's very very religious. But we met and we explained how we believe each other and we respect each other, and I find that very very important, very constructive. That people respect and because you never know, I could be wrong and you could be right, and we just switch chair, whatever. But the religious people are concerned for people like me. Like she was worried that she would go to heaven and be alone, and I said, "Well, don't worry. If God exists and heaven exists, I'll be with you. Don't worry. I don't need to believe in it. It will happen." But my attitude is that if I die, it doesn't matter. I'm happy. I have my life. What I was doing is I was putting all my balls in the basket of life. What I would say is have a good life, and when it's done, it's done. I'm not afraid of that, but I was not pleased with the fact that I had clear signs that I was going to die. But uh, that against misery and bad health, well, let's relieve myself of the misery. Although I'm not in favor of euthanism or letting people die or helping them to die. I think we should help them to live. There's a trend right now, especially in Canada, to help old, sick people
Yeah.
to die. And I'm not in favor of that at all because I know better now with carnivore in particular. And what my expectancy is now is that I could live another 70 years. Oh, when I say that, and I'm not shy of saying it, a lot of people think you're crazy. It's just a statement to show off and whatnot. But no, I studied the question, and there are many, many places in the world where people live up to 120, 130 years old. And the reports say that the people that live that whole, the majority are still working in their fields or their garden, and they're active, cleaning their house, they live in their home, so on and so forth. So as long as you are eating good, well, and they eat meat, most of them. I won't talk about the blue zone, seven country example and whatnot. There's plenty of information about that. You can do your own research. The point is that if you are eating well, you nourish your body properly, and you're active physically, you're going to be okay for a long, long time. And the oldest person that lived is reportedly lived 160 years old. But there was a lady and she looked like a skeleton. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to be on Alzheimer. I don't want to be blind and sick. If I'm going to live up to 140 years old, I want to be well. So this is why I do a little bit of exercise with my diet. But I believe the statement that many make that health condition is 80% diet and 20% exercise. I don't believe in any excessive eating this or that, or drinking this or that, or exercising. I think you have to be moderate and you have to listen to your body. Your body will speak to you, will tell you what it needs. But you have to be able to distinguish between hunger for meat and craving for sugar. Sugar is a drug, and it's a drug just like cocaine and other stuff that goes to your hypothalamus, which produces pleasure, and it's addictive, and it won't kill you fast. It will kill you slowly, just like alcohol. If you have a problem with alcohol, it's about the same thing. So the thing is, you have to know the difference in your brain, and that needs preparation. That's what I did. 2 years of study, and then I did little baby steps, keto and paleo, because I was shifting to try to get off the plateau. So with keto, I lost 70 pounds. With paleo, I lost 20 pounds. But the last 10 pounds to reach the range of optimal weight for me, I had to go carnivore. So the thing about this is it's mechanical in my case because I'm professional. I have a professional bias because I'm an engineer. I, I applied one rule at a time and I measured the difference as much as I could. And it's very tricky because in my business I do all kinds of modeling, computer models and whatnot, and I also do time study in mining production. In my field of work, we work with nature all the time, and nature is you could call it capricious. Nature is irregular; it's not regular. Uh, some days it rains, some days it snows, so you have to make up with that. It's not an environment that is controlled like in a factory. So you have to learn to deal with variations in nature. The concentration of gold and silver varies from one place to the other in the same mine. There's nothing regular at all in mining and exploration. And so when I engage on my journey for dieting, I use the same rules that I use in my professional work. One change at a time and try to identify what it does and see if it's good or bad. If you have to reverse things, change the order, change the time lag. And there's a time lag. If I eat steak today, the impact will be felt tomorrow or the day after. I'm going to give you, for example, I stopped eating ice cream with chocolate. Well, I had one yesterday, one Sunday with chocolate yesterday with my wife. She wanted to have ice cream, so we went and we had ice cream. And I had one. It was one Sunday with chocolate this summer. I didn't have any last year. So I make exceptions and I see how I feel. And what I found out is that as I evolved from keto to paleo to carnivore, I am improving all the time. And I continue to improve right now. So I've reached a weight that I should be in. And I didn't start to do exercise until I started carnivore. I was just too fat. I was too heavy. It was too difficult for me to do any exercise when I started. You know, let me catch my breath when I sleep to start, right? And rest. So that's what I did in the beginning. And I said to myself, the other thing is everything has to be pleasant and have a positive effect. And I did an interview with another carnivore guy, David Mack, and Dave Mack, and he's also on that same way of thinking that you need to take action to get results, and that the positive results will raise your motivation to do another action to get more positive results. So what I say is when I see people saying, God help me, or I need to have more will, or I cheated, I try to tell them, don't feel like that. Like one person that I really like is Amanda on Carnivore Me. She was over 360 pounds last year, and she lost over 100 pounds in a year, and she's a little bit over a year. And there's sometimes she has difficulties. We all do have difficulties, but I don't. If you want God to help you, pray. That's perfect with me. I bless you if you want. The thing is, you have to find the strength in you. Even people who are religious and pray all the time to get favors and whatnot, they recognize that if God exists, He's not going to make it easy for you all the time. It's just not going to. You have to
Yeah.
find the strength in your own soul to step forward and improve yourself. Jordan Peterson, that I like a lot, is Canadian. He talks a lot about that. Take your responsibility and take action, and you will feel better, and that will motivate you to go further. Call that the invisible hand of God, if you wish. I don't mind, even though I'm not a religious person. I do it on my own way, but it's very similar, because you have to do that. You just have to take action, benefit from the action you took. And if you make a wrong choice, well, you will pay the price. And all the experiments I've done on carnivore, which is drink some wine last Christmas, drink a coffee every 3 months, or eat chocolate this summer. I was not binging, but I was craving chocolate all summer. There's a point where you can't resist anymore. So what I do is I eat a piece of chocolate. I don't eat a whole bar. I eat one piece of chocolate. I buy the best. Well, I don't. My wife does. So she's the devil in the equation. So I take a piece of your chocolate and I eat it and I satisfy myself. And then I sit down and I reflect. How was it? Well, it tastes like sugar more than chocolate. It was not that good. And the next day, my kidneys are starting to grind again, and I feel it's coming back. And my candida, I had fungus everywhere, my feet, my groin, my armpits. It's all gone. Everything is gone. All my medicine, I quit except one, but I'm going to quit soon. And that's what happened. Okay. Now you spoke about fruits and sugar. Fructose is worse than glucose, and fruits have fructose in them. And the fruits we have today has nothing to do with what we had when I was a kid. I'm a little bit
Yeah.
older than you, and we had fruits in seasons. And fruits had seeds, and some fruits had a lot of seeds. Sometimes the oranges were so full of seeds, or more seeds than pulp, and so on and so forth. And nowadays, you have all these fruits, exotic fruits from tropical countries all year round, all the way to the North Pole. And in my work, I've traveled a lot and I've seen these people. I've been to the North Pole, I've been to the equator, I've been in the desert, I've been in the Philippines, Australia, all these places. And because I love food, I always try the local food and talk with people about their traditions and whatnot. And I know we're all getting sick in the same way. Okay. So, yeah, I don't want to go too much into that. There's a doctor who's very good at talking about that, Gary Fechte, and he's from Tasmania in Australia. He lost his license because he was doing medical prevention with his patients, and they told him he was doing malpractice, and they took his license away. He fought back, and he got his license back, but he lost a lot of work and money because of that. Anyway, but he did a lot of study when he was not working as a doctor, and he unraveled all the story behind the food industry and the standard American diet. Anyway, so it's the big companies of cereals and whatnot that are promoting the type of foods that are making us sick. They don't kill us; they just make us sick. So, yeah, so what I did on carnivore is I was able to eliminate all the last medicine I was taking, resolving all my problems except one. The last pill that I dropped was a called what they call it was for the heart and blood pressure. Actually, it's called a beta blocker. Beta blocker are a type of medicine that are supposed to dilate your uh, veins to help the circulation of blood and lower your blood pressure. And in my case, when I started to stop taking it, I was cutting my pills in half. It was a low doses, because I got followed by my doctors all the time. But I started to have tachycardia, they call it, which is a high frequency heartbeat. So my doctor sent me to see a cardiologist, and I saw the cardiologist, and he made some tests on me, effort tests, and he said, "Well, you have tachycardia when you're doing effort." So when I was at rest, I was okay. So I said, "There must be a way to get out of this drug." But he said, "Take it. I'll give you the lowest dose and cut the pills in half if you want." So I did that for a year now, and I want to go off of it. But my doctor retired in December. So 6 months ago, my doctor retired. So I can't validate my ideas. And it's written everywhere that if I stop that drug, I'll die. I will have a heart attack and drop dead. Well, I don't want that, of course, but I'm stubborn. Stubborn. That's one thing you get when you go carnivore, that's for sure. You got to be stubborn. So what I did is I cut my pills in four now. So one pill lasts 4 days. And you know what? The secondary effect of the pill, which are pains in your legs sometimes, erectile dysfunction, and a number of other things, they're going down. Now, another thing is my blood pressure is still going down. Is it because the pill is maintaining my blood pressure high? I don't know. But carnivore is like a miracle. So I'm looking forward to stop taking the pill soon. But I need to get another doctor to follow me. But anyway, that's not a problem. I feel great. And I think I'm going to live another 70 years. That's my goal right now. And to people who say I'm crazy, well, I say, well, it's possible. Some humans did it. They're maybe not in good shape at the end of their life, but knowing what I know now about carnivore, I have high hopes that carnivore can take me the length and more. Why more? Why not more than 140 years old? Why not? Tell me why. I
Yeah.
have I'm feeling like I was feeling when I was 35 to 40 years old. I have lost 35 years of aging in 2 years, and I'm still progressing. I still have chocolate to give up completely and dairy. That's my next goal this year, to cut off completely dairy. Maybe I'll try without eggs. I eat eggs, but that's where I stand right now. And the other thing is, in the next 70 years, how is medical science going to progress? If medical science and medical healthcare system understand what carnivore does, and I think it's starting to understand it, and it's spreading fast right now. The vegans are panicking. They're aggressive. We are not. We're not telling anybody not to go vegan. We're just telling people how carnivore are doing, and we're doing fine. That's the message from the carnivore community, and the unity and the friendship and the help that exists within the carnivore community is fantastic. It needs to get to the higher levels of healthcare system and in the corporations. For example, I am telling everybody who wants to hear it, we have to speak with life insurance company, with insurance companies that offer Medicare. Come with us. You will make more money and you will save money, and the carnivores will save money because we are never sick. So insurance
Yeah.
companies and healthcare companies, life insurance and healthcare and others. Because when I drive, I'm much less of a risk because I don't have any faculty that are attenuated because I'm sick. And also, uh, my brain is functioning so much better. The thing you don't see with carnivore is it's not just physical. It's not just the sickness that goes away. Your your mental faculties are improved significantly. Not only do I sleep better, but I have fantastic dreams. I sleep my solid 7 to 8 hours a day, continuous, and I make dreams that are unbelievable. I still work. I'm vice president of expression for a mining company. I've been there for 7 years. I've been 4 times vice president of expression of companies, mining companies, and exploration. And my ideas are just incredible. When I have a full day of work, let's say we have a project and it's intensive, when I go, I don't stop working. When I go to sleep, I dream and I resolve problems one after the other. When I wake up and go to the next meeting and the next day, people find it exciting until I finish talking. When I finish talking, they say, "Hoof, are you done now?" It takes them weeks to catch up with my ideas. And I'm not always right, but my brain is up and running and producing results. And you know what? I'm not anxious because they can't follow me. I just sit back and relax. No anxiety, no nervous breakdown, no headache. And give them time to breathe and catch up. And if they don't because they eat bad and they're sick and they die, it's okay. I wish them good luck. I will take their place. That's it. Because I have 45 years of experience. I will have many decades more. And, I will reach a level that nobody can beat in my knowledge. Went around the world 4 times in my work, visiting mines. And, my, I will, my intention is to start my YouTube channel and tell my stories. Because I've been around the world, and when you work in the mining industry, you take the plane, the most modern means of transportation. You go to a luxury hotel in the capital city of a country in Africa or elsewhere, and then you take a jeep and you run for one day in the desert, with camels crossing the desert, and you get to an oasis to look at the phosphate deposit in the middle of the desert. You do camping, no water, whatever, for 2 days, take some samples and get out. And you spend your time with the Bedouins and the natives who drive the truck and so on and so forth and prepare your food. And you talk with them and you eat with them, you eat like them. And I'm going to tell you, people are in good health and working conditions in the world, they eat meat everywhere. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I want to share that. I want to share that if I can, and I will. So, yeah. So I
That's
gave you quite a
awesome.
bit of stuff.
Well,
There's other topics I can talk, and I hope to. Well, I will put on my YouTube channel, but
yeah.
yeah,
We're talking about being productive. I made a couple little notes.
yeah,
My part of my fear, I think, of getting old was the being unproductive. Like, oh, I couldn't get around.
disabled.
A thing that stuck out in my mind is I was watching a guy at REI put on shoes, and I said this in one other video, and it's funny how certain little things really stick in
Yeah,
your mind. He couldn't bend down or he couldn't lift his leg to get his shoes on, and he didn't look like he was, I would say he was probably 75.
yeah,
Now, I don't know his condition. He might have had something that had that, but I've looked around, and I'm sure we all have, and seen these people who are barely getting around. Like these days, when I go into, say, Sam's Club or Costco, I'm pushing the cart, I'm fairly quick, like a younger person, and I'm going past all these other people who I even think, wow, and it's not in a mean way, but they're really out of shape and they're younger than me.
yeah,
And you can tell they're having problems just pushing a cart full of
yeah,
all this junk. And there's not that thing. And it goes back to like your drive and your mind being sharp. Our reflexive states are way up from what mine used to be.
yeah,
The one time I told my wife when I was going up the stairs, I'm like, honey, I can go up the stairs like I used to. And she's like, how is that? And I said, quickly.
yeah,
It's those little things that productive. And I think these ancient people in these tribes, their elders were still productive. And I didn't want to become old and frail and have my kids have to look after me. I would rather live till whatever age that is, let's say 90, 100, still stacking rocks to make a rock wall for my sheep. Let's
yeah,
just say, that's kind of a
yeah,
fantasy life of living somewhere, or out hunting and then something happens and I go.
yeah,
That's my idea of that kind of age. And I know with the interesting thing on your chocolate. Now, are you eating like a 95% chocolate bar or what kind of?
Yeah, nothing below 70, but usually it's 95. And I went so far as eating 100%. And I like 100%. I like the bitterness of pure chocolate. Now, the problem with chocolate is not just oxalate, there's a bunch of toxins, but
Yeah.
there's some reportedly good stuff like magnesium and whatnot. So, yeah, I experienced with pure chocolate and I felt the good and the bad, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I know when I go for chocolate, this craving. It's
This,
just my brain playing tricks on me.
yeah. And this brings up an interesting thing because the coffee, I had a commercial espresso machine in our house. Like
Yeah,
it came on a truck on a pallet, and I had other espresso machines. I was one of those guys that was, I have flat burr and conical burr grinders like Mazzer.
yeah, me too.
Mine was an Electra A3, which is a pretty good machine,
Yeah,
so it was plumbed in to the water and the drain, and
yeah,
it had to have a dedicated 20 amp breaker. We're
yeah.
talking,
We have so much in common.
espresso.
I was a
Yeah.
coffee
So
addicted guy with a big
I
coffee
was
machine
that
too.
guy that, you know, loved certain beans and they had to be good fresh beans and they couldn't be
Yeah,
fresh within 3 days. They have to, off gas, they have to breathe, so like that prime state.
yeah.
And that was my thing.
At my top, I
And
would buy my green beans and roast them myself, but that I was not
yeah,
good. I
I
was not
almost
very
got
good at
into roasting and I just enjoyed so many other roasters
that. Yeah,
doing it that I just never got into it. But
the smell.
when I quit 2 years in, and I still
Yeah,
get this on the comments, like, why do you want me to quit coffee? Ken Berry drinks coffee. I'm like, that's fine if you like it. But it's worth
yeah,
testing. And this brings us to something else we have in common is this testing. And I keep telling
yeah,
people, like with coffee, it took me 2 years into carnivore
yeah,
to notice the difference. And one analogy I use is I'm not a guitar player. I can't tell the difference of a high-end guitar or not. Now, if somebody started a guitar, they might not be able to tell the difference, but maybe after a year or two, they could go, wow, I'm starting to understand the sounds of these $500 to $5,000 guitar
yeah,
ranges. And I'm going after this. And I say, it's like in carnivore and healing. I do think there might be a point when you are so in tune with your body that you can then now sense what this coffee is doing to you or the chocolate. And I look at chocolate and coffee the same. They're both a bean, they're both a big craving for
yeah,
all westernized nations. So if you're drinking coffee and you're saying, "Oh, that guy shouldn't be eating chocolate," I just
yeah,
say, "Go hold your cup in the mirror and have a sip," because that's all you're
yeah,
doing is the same addiction. And when I had tried to quit coffee, I never noticed a difference.
yeah,
And then I never noticed a difference and I kept doing it. And finally, again, at that 2 year mark, all of a sudden it was just this like, wow, I had way better sleep, even
yeah,
better recovery. And I noticed all these other things about it. And I think this is the importance of testing that,
yeah,
people like yourself or me are the types of minds that understand I don't I don't find something that works, and we talked about this before ourselves. I find 3 or 4 things that work, and then I narrow those 4 top things down so I know I'm at my optimum
yeah.
of finding that
Let, let
thing.
me let me take that ball and run with it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
They say there's no proof that carnivore is best. Okay. They say there's no scientific proof that carnivore is best. But what you describe is precisely scientific thinking and scientific action. Science is not about saying, making a statement, and this is God, and you got to respect that. Don't touch it. That's not science. Science is not about consensus. That 95% of the climate scientists say that climate change is going on. That's not science. That's pushing newspaper, trying to sell newspapers and sell ads in the TV show or whatnot. It's making sensation of something that is not. But I don't want to talk about climate. Science is about trying and failing and trying and succeeding. This is how science is. This is why I love engineering so much. Then there's pure science. People who will put themselves in a lab or in an office and use mathematics to develop science that is pure and quote not tested yet, but it is to be tested. Like Einstein did that, and a lot of his theories were tested. Once it's tested, then it becomes accepted, not by consensus. In the beginnings, Einstein was not accepted. His ideas were crazy and so on and so forth. It's only through the experience that you prove your science. And science is just a Greek word that means knowledge. That's all it means. Knowledge and awareness. Okay. So what you did and what I did is that. Now I was a big coffee addict. When I was young, at university, I was so active in school and outside of school, and my family was not rich, so I had to work, study, and play. And I even got involved in politics and all that stuff. I won't even talk about it. When you're young, then when there's an opportunity to go down in the field, play ball,
Mhm.
or protest against some things, some people go for it, some don't. I was the one who would go always. So the point is, I had no time to sleep for years, literally years at the university, and didn't sleep. 2 hours a night, no more, for many years. And I was sleepy, I was tired, but because I was up and running, you just keep going. What is the ideal drug to do that? Coffee. I was never a drinker. I never took drugs, and I never liked alcohol when I was young. My first glass of wine was when I was 21 in a meal with steak, of course. And my first glass of beer was 2 years later. I never was a heavy drinker like every young guy. Well, many young guys, most of them, will have their experience of binging on alcohol when they're young and getting sick and whatnot. I never went through that. But coffee was my drug and sugar. I would eat chocolate bars and drink coffee. I would drink 2 or 3 pots of coffee per day. And until I was about 50 years old. It's only when I was 56, imagine, I was making high blood pressure. I didn't know. I was drinking my coffee and still going, not as fast as when I was young because I was starting to get fat. But I was in a mine at 4,500 meters. That's about 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet in Peru, in a mountain, up, walking in the snow. And I started to feel bad, dizzy, and so on and so forth. So every mine that is isolated has a nurse, right? Somebody in case of emergency. So I went to see the nurse. He took my blood pressure. It was, above 200 and whatnot. So he gave me a pill. My blood pressure came down. I came down the mountain, went back home, and saw my doctor. And I was doing high blood pressure. So he started to put me on medication. I was not perfectly healthy at then, and I lost the taste for coffee. I all of a sudden I lost the taste for coffee, but I went back to coffee, but only in the morning, 2 cups of coffee. But I said, if it's going to be just 2 cups of coffee per day, it's going to be real coffee. So I got this big coffee machine. And I tried all kinds of beans and make my own and so on and so forth, and grinding fresh coffee and whatnot, and bringing coffee back from coffee producing countries like Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, and so on and so forth. I tried it all. And when I went on Carnivore, I was still drinking coffee. I was still taking my 2 espressos in the morning. And then I said, no, I just don't have the craving for it. So I stopped, and no problems. Then after a few months, I decided to try it again with cream. So with fatty cream, heavy cream. So I did that. And now I feel like taking one every 2 months, 2 or 3 months. So I take an espresso on the weekend whenever everything is quiet, and I pay the price. The next
Mhm.
night or not, I will not sleep as well. I will wake up every 2 hours or so. It's not a big impact, but I can see it. I can measure it, and I know. So, yeah, I don't need coffee. But if I take it, it's for my pleasure and to get rid of the craving. And this is something you have to be careful, I find. My experience is don't play with cravings too much, you know. I do it not to cheat. I don't feel guilt. I don't do it on purpose to cheat, to say, oh, ha, ha. No, I just do it to get rid of a craving, satisfy my little devil, and get proof once more that
Yeah.
if I want to improve, I have to give it up. That's what I did with chocolate and dairy this summer. And I'm looking forward for the fall, next fall, to be able to cancel those until Christmas. Christmas is funny, you know. I don't, and Christmas and Easter is times where you meet with your family, have big meal. Everybody in my family know that I'm carnivore, and they're kind of following me a little bit. I don't have too much cravings anymore. Last Christmas, I had a little bit of wine. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it, and I don't appreciate the taste anymore. And that's it. I'm done. And I
There's
try
an
to tell other people.
interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I try to tell my family and other people around me to try it. At least try it.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's the thing. You got to try it to know. Otherwise,
yeah,
oh, I won't try that. It's like, well, then there's no conversation. It's interesting on the time frame. Like, while we've both been doing things, I've definitely been doing the carnivore side longer. And
yeah,
this is maybe an analogy. That craving of the first year maybe turned into a desire the second year, and by the third year there's no interest in those things like coffee for me. Now again, as I just got through saying, 2 years I finally quit the coffee. I would occasionally still like might have one little teeny sip of my wife's cold brew coffee with cream like every few months, just to see. Like, I'm like you, I just got to know,
yeah,
is it now still not good taste to me? It's like there's a memory, but I don't have anything associated with it. And I know we're all individual, and I know this has nothing to do with you or the other person, but I do think there's similarities. I really do think
yeah,
there's commonalities or similarities. My first year, I could walk down a grocery store aisle and not care about the stuff I used to like, be it
yeah,
cookies or chips or anything else. And I'm like, well, I don't, but it took this thought or willpower. Do you know what I'm trying to kind of,
yeah, yeah,
it's like, no, I'm feeling so good. I don't want that. By the second year, it was like I could walk down and be like, "Oh, I remember liking those. Oh, yeah, pork rinds. I can still have those, but I'll put them aside." And these days, in that third year, going on to four, because I started at the first of the year. So coming up here in December, I'll be at 4 years. I truly just have no interest or no care,
yeah,
but I'm fine with, just like I said, trying one sip of my wife's
yeah,
every 3 or 4 months because I'm curious to kind of test these things. But there's certain things I just don't even test. Like, my kids would have Costco pepperoni pizza, and I used to love that stuff.
yeah,
And I would have like one little bite of like maybe the cheese and the sauce to try it the first year and the second year. And that third year, I don't think I've even tried anything. I do have 2 bites of their cake, my kids' cake every year, just to help
yeah,
celebrate their birthday, and it's also an interesting thing, but I've never craved it. Now, the first year, it was insanely sweet. The
yeah,
second year, I could taste the chemicals in it, especially the chocolate one from Costco. I could taste this weird taste. My daughter on this third year made one from scratch, and it was mostly like mascarpone and cream and some, dulce de leche for the, uh, frosting.
yeah,
And when I had that, I was actually like, you know what? It doesn't taste synthetic. I can understand that it tasted okay because it was made with fairly good, whole, real things, but I didn't crave it. So I do think there's something to be said for this long term. And Dr. Chafee's mentioned this, that there's a lot of cellular reconstruction and
absolutely.
cellular. And to this point, really quickly, when you were paleo or when you were keto before that and you had chocolate ice cream, did it affect you the same as it does now?
No, it was worse because there was so much oxalate in the food, the plants.
You would notice the
Oh
oxalates.
my God, it's a world of difference for me. I'm sensitive to oxalate very much. I had gout and my legs were hurting so much. My legs were very, very bad. And I had big problems with my legs. I lost all my hair on my leg. It was a very progressive thing, that you don't pay attention to. You say, I'm just getting old. But I had lost all my hair on my legs. They're growing back now. I had dark skin, very dark brown skin. Uh, that's gone. I had hard skin under my heel and my toes and my foot. That's all gone. I had fungi, and I had chipped nails all over the place. Right now, my nails are perfect. I have no more problems. So, yeah, the keto paleo with chocolate doesn't mix up well. But I was eating a lot of nuts also, and nuts are rich in oxalates also. Anyway,
Yeah.
the other thing is that nuts are addictive, and so on and so forth. Anyway, but there's some things you mentioned. Our taste buds change. Like the taste changes, and as we go further and further into carnivore, I believe that our body restores the normal way we taste things, and bitter things and sour things and toxic things really taste bitter, and it wants to spit it out. And so that's what happened to me with coffee and so on and so forth. But I'm still in a learning process about that for chocolate and dairy. Dairy is the sweet side. If it was just for the nutrients in dairy, it would be good. But dairy is not normal that an adult eats dairy. Dairy is made for babies growing. There's growth
Yeah.
factors in dairy. So anything that has a growing factor like sugar and dairy, proteins in dairy have they incite growth. It's dangerous. You're playing with fire because cancer is growth going out of control. So if you don't want cancer, if you don't want inflammation, like inflammation is a leaky gut and your immune system going crazy. Your immune system sees enemies everywhere. Your gut is leaking because it's damaged, so you get poisonous molecules that get into your blood. You're sounding the alarm. The immune system goes on alert and starts to chase down particles of food that are in your blood to sterilize them and get rid of them. And some of these food have they have an imprint that looks like some parts of your body. So your immune system starts to attack this bits of food and also your body at the same time. So you get it could be your joints, and so you get arthritis and so on and so forth. So by reversing this and closing down, shutting down your digestive system to particles that are getting into your blood, you fix the problem and you get rid of it. That brings another subject that I just want to touch on very quickly is genetics. I have a genetic factor for proponent for my joint pains, my how do you call it, arthritis. It's a gene called B27 or B29. I think it's B27. It was the first gene when they studied genes that they identified that they could associate with a disease. So arthritis B27. Okay. Now, because of that link, they were able to identify a bunch of autoimmune diseases that are related to that form of arthritis with that gene. Okay. Now, here's my question. A lot of people think they're obese or they have sickness because of genetic defects they have or they're inherited. So the question is that if you have a genetic defect and you're born with it, you have an arm missing or a leg missing or just one eye, okay. But even that, the point is if you're born normal and you become sick, you can say it's because of the genes all you want. It's not the genes. The gene is inactive for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden you become obese because of a genetic defect. I don't buy it. It's the environment. Okay, a
Yeah.
gene is part of the event, the cascade of event that will bring on your disease, your obesity, diabetes, whatever. But the gene was turned off and something turned it on. It's like having a nuclear bomb, you know, and somebody turn on the key. The nuclear bomb is there, but if it won't do anything if nobody plays with the key. So who has turned on the key? Well, it comes from here. We have
Yeah.
we have many holes in our bodies, right? We have two eyes, two ears, two nostrils, one mouth, and two more down there. And the biggest hole of all the holes we have in our body is the mouth.
Yeah.
And we have to revert back thinking, what did I put in my mouth to be like this before thinking of putting another pill in your mouth? This is what we have to teach people to think about. You know, you feel bad because you're trying to go carnivore and you have carnivore flu. Well, what did you put in your mouth? You know what? I had the carnivore flu for months on end, and I welcomed it because the benefits were much better, much higher than the problems. And I engaged into carnivore slowly. I continued to take coffee for some time. I continued to take chocolate for some time. I continued to drink wine for some time. What I eliminated first was the vegetables and the fruits. And I did it step by step. And I don't know that it was the meat that made me sick. Now I know it's not the meat, but it was maybe something else. And I was not so sick because I had the flu. And I knew that was because my bacteria in my gut were changing from being fed with sugar to be fed with fat. So the bacteria that required sugar, they died and I flushed them out. And I never had pain in my gut. I never had cramps or anything like that, like I had when I was younger, when I drank milk and whatnot. So I knew that I had to go through the change, and I welcomed the diarrhea. I'm sorry to say to those who suffer
Yeah.
from it. And I did not go to the toilet much more. If I wanted to reduce going to the toilet, I went on fasting. That's as simple as that. And I didn't do it so often. I did a couple of times 48 hours fast and one time 72 hours. And when I sit down to eat, I eat until I'm not hungry anymore. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. I will, I will pass a day. That's easy as pie. I have no problem with that. So that's how I regulated my carnivore flu. And the longest stretch of time that I was in carnivore flu is took me 3 months, on and off, on and off, on and off. But you know what? Sometimes for long periods, I would go to the toilet once or twice a week. I
Yeah.
don't. I didn't give a damn, solid or not. I didn't care. I didn't feel bad. I could do all my stuff, and I didn't go frequently to the washroom. So I didn't. I tough it out. It's no problem. Right now I'm regular, and I'm happy, and I have no problem except if I make my little exceptions.
Hmm.
That's it. So genetics is out the window, and carnivore flu is not a problem. But you gotta take the ride through it. I don't know any carnivore person who didn't have problems with your or their macro in their gut. It's normal. It's a radical change of food, and you have
Well,
to go through it.
it's interesting you're talking about the holes in your body because I don't know. This is how my mind goes off on these thinkings. Your ears are like your eyeballs. They're a closed thing. They're a sensory. You're going to get input and output.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You can sense that. Your ears are the same way. We know that mouth breathing is technically not as good as breathing through the nose, but we can use
yeah.
the mouth if we're extremely labored in a point. But the
That's
nose
what
will
they
allow
say.
us to yeah, but it's like, we can smell meat if it's bad, we can smell fire if it's happening, we can smell something that's off. We can even smell sickness and sense
Yeah,
sickness. If you're really in tune with yourself and you're sick, you can smell it from the inside.
Dogs know when
But the
it's
mouth on the intake and food, and obviously what's interesting is you have 2 ways to exit the stuff you take in.
yeah,
To me, it's kind of like our bodies are complex enough as we take this stuff in to figure out what to do with it, but that mouth coming in, you get this, "Oh, your teeth are designed for this," and I love those pictures of, like, a hippopotamus with these huge fangs saying, like,
yeah,
"Oh, a plant eater." Like, don't get me on the teeth thing, but when
yeah,
you think about what we're putting in for the nutrients and what's going out, and obviously, like, having any kind of bowel movements or anything else on carnivore is greatly reduced, which I think is probably more the norm.
yeah,
You don't see dogs, they'll wanna run out and do that if they're eating stuff, but if dogs are eating quite healthy or animals are eating quite healthy, it's not the norm that they're running in and out all the time. They'll tend to go do their thing and be done.
yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing
And they don't
about.
use toilet paper.
No. It's an interesting thing though about with your mouth taking this food in and what is this palatable, and this goes back to what you were saying too about, we're now in tune with what things should be. We both agree fruits are something that used to be something different. When
Yeah,
we used to hunt in the islands, anybody from the Hawaiian Islands knows what strawberry guava is. And they're basically, you're eating seeds with some pulp that's protecting the seeds.
yeah,
But there's something that you can just grab natural, and they never became like the modern pineapple or modern other foods.
yeah,
And even the bananas there, the apple bananas are small and they're quite firm. They're sweet, but they're not like the same as a modern banana. And I think, again, it goes back to
yeah.
that analogy of the guitar. It's not that some people go, "Oh, it's you've become so sensitive that it's bugging you." And I say, I don't think it's the sensitive that it's bugging me. It's a sensitive that I now notice what the truth is. It's just a small kind of juxtaposition because they're saying, "Oh, well, you've become so weak that these things are affecting you and they shouldn't affect you." And I say, "No, we're now understanding that they affect us because." Does that make sense what I'm trying to kind of get
Yes,
across?
yes,
And I
absolutely.
think this is where people get it wrong about these foods, and you were talking about that with the dairy. Now, the Maasai live on obviously a lot of dairy, milk, blood, meat, and some plant stuff in the base. And I think dairy is fine if you know why you are consuming it. Like me for my no gallbladder, we talked about if I know why I'm doing it, or the one guy, that Primal Mike, the P Raw Mike guy, and he's with dairy, he's trying to gain the weight. So he's got a really good reason to be doing this. Carrie, my metamorphosis, we were talking the other day and she's trying to gain weight. I think like if you have this reason that you think, okay, I could maybe use those growth hormones and that stuff in dairy to
Yeah,
do something for me. But I do think this is again where you and I are very much alike with I
yeah,
want the root cause,
yeah,
then I'll go forward to say, hey, how can this work for me or how can this hurt me? And then find that balance because I get affected negatively by cheese, but the positive effects are a 7, the negatives are a 5. So I'm like, okay, I'm 2 points in the positive, if that's just an
yeah,
analogy.
yeah. You're touching on something that's rebounds on a few levels. For example, raw dairy is much different than processed dairy.
Hmm.
We know that. So raw dairy is much more favorable to be consumed than processed dairy. And then the A2 protein that
Yeah.
you know about, cheeses from the Mediterranean. Some regions of the world, they don't have the same cows and they have different proteins in their milk. And so their cheeses and dairy product are more digestible, more useful. The ones we use, well, typical North Europe and North America, we use cows that are very productive for profit.
Hmm.
That's okay. Cows that produce a lot of milk, Holstein, and the problem with those cows produce more milk, more meat, more fat because they produce a protein that is different from the other cows that are smaller and so on and so forth. And likely, like the cows that have that protein that makes them fatter and produce more milk, we become fatter and so on and so forth. Now the problem is the cows don't get sick because they get killed before they get old, and we get old and sick before after we're healthy.
Yeah.
And the problem with dairy is the sugar in it, the lactose, whatnot. And milk without lactose is not better, as I understand it, because apparently they extract the lactose, which is natural sugar molecule in milk, to and replace it with glucose or something that is a so the taste doesn't change that much. So they replace one sugar molecule with the other, which is not better for health, and they make you pay for the process. So, like we say, most people say in the carnivore and keto world, processed, and even vegans say that processed food should not. Now, the problem
Well,
with vegan is they promote artificial meat. I mean, it's not necessarily vegans. I think some vegans are against all processed food, including artificial meat. But I mean, why do carnivore pizza and impossible meat? I mean, if you want to eat meat, don't eat impossible meat. Eat the real thing. If you want pizza, eat the real thing. Eat pizza, maybe with a thin
mhm.
crust and a lot of pepperoni and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it right. I mean, don't play with fire. Don't play with
Yeah.
keto snacks that are not keto and whatnot with peanut butter and whatnot. I mean, even coconut oil and coconuts are maybe healthier than some other plant products, but not that much. For example, olive oil. Okay, so people who talk about Mediterranean diet, that olive oil is good, like Dr. Stephen Gundry is very heavy on the olive oil. It's got to be virgin and this and that. Now, look at the chemical making makeup of olive oil. First of all, olive oil is so damn expensive that they dilute it with poor, bad quality oil. The second thing is the olive oil profile, pure virgin olive oil, has plenty of omega 6 and very little omega 3. I think the ratio is 2 to 1 or even worse than that. So if you eat olive oil, you eat actually too much omega 6, which is the problem with the vegetable oils. Even though olive oil is a fruit oil, like avocado oil is better because it doesn't come from seeds. But strangely enough, palm oil, which is criticized because the way palm trees are grown in the countries where they cultivate them, is one of the best. And the ratio of omega 6 against omega 3. Now, omega polysaturated fats are important. And this is why you shouldn't touch the vegetable oils. It's too much omega 6. Now, if you take a sample of how much fat they have in native populations up north that use traditional food or animals that live in nature, you have a omega 6 to omega 3 ratio of 1 to 1, more or less, maybe 2 to 1. But in the American population today, most of modern population that not just in America, I mean everywhere they use the same diet pyramid and eat a lot of cereals. Even if in Africa, people that are poor will eat a lot of cereals. They will have an omega 3 to omega 6 ratio of up to 20 to 1. Now, what's the difference between omega 6 and omega 3? Omega 6 has one link that is short, okay, in the middle of the molecule. So what happens is we need omega 6 and omega 3, which is cholesterol. Open your ears. Cholesterol is dangerous. You have plenty of it in all of your body. Every cell of your body is full of cholesterol because the cell membrane is made of cholesterol. But that's okay. If you have a ratio of 1 to 1, then the cell will mature and get old and destroy itself normally, and the material will be recycled. You don't need to consume omega 6 and omega 3 a little bit, but not that much. You find enough in the meat to satisfy your needs. But if you eat vegan or olive oil or plant based diet, you will have much more omega 6. Sorry, this is the one with the crooked molecule.
Mhm.
Now, the problem with the omega 6 is that when it's exposed to oxygen, it oxidizes more quickly than omega 3. So the molecule breaks down, falls apart, and your cell membrane becomes damaged, and your cell will die more quickly. And so we have billions of cells that are dying every day in our body, but our body can recycle the material to build new cells, stem cells to replace the cells that died. But when they have too many that die, it becomes unsustainable. And this is when you start to have diseases. So diseases will start to happen in the weakest part of your body, whatever your composition is. Could be diabetes, could be obesity, could be multiple sclerosis. So your cells are not replaced frequently enough. They're not in good state. They're not functioning properly. So omega 3 to omega 6, that's the problem there. Then there's 1,000 other things that are influencing how we get older and sick. And reversing that is possible if you establish, the way you should eat as you should. But it doesn't mean you will live forever. But there's a chance, like Jim Carrey says, when he was in
Yeah.
Dumber and Dumb, he was saying to the
Well,
girl,
there's a chance.
yeah, she
Yeah.
says, well, 1 in a million. You mean I have a chance? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good
You
one.
want to have that chance? Go carnivore.
We're definitely a lot alike. We'll have to keep in touch on this. But
Yeah.
is there any kind of parting words you would like to say to anybody out there? Closing thoughts?
There's many, but I spoke about genetics. The last thing is I didn't start exercising until I went full blast on carnivore and I lost of weight because I didn't want to tire myself and feed my cravings. You could do exercise and then, oh, let's have a break and give myself a prize, for doing 10 push-ups and eat a piece of chocolate. So I waited until I was deep into carnivore before I started to exercise. And what I do it is fairly light yoga type because of my arthritis. I want to regain some mobility. That's what I do. And a little bit of 15 push-ups every day and 25 squats and cycle for my heart, so cardio a little bit. But the rhythm of my exercise is so that I can do it, forever. I'm not trying to build muscles to the point of getting married again or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm not chasing girls. And when I spoke about erectile functions, I was talking about a healthy man has to have those manifestations, but I'm not talking about it in a sexual way. If you're single or if you're in a sexless marriage, which happens to a lot of people that are obese and whatnot, that's not what I was talking about. I mean, it's fine if you have a good life, including the sex that you deserve, and so on and so forth, whatever your beliefs are, or traditions or habits. But it's about health. Everything should work normally if you're healthy, and that's one sign. So
It's like grip strength. Grip
yeah,
strength is a huge thing when you see people that cannot even open,
I can.
a jar of whatever, pickles.
Yeah, yeah. We had a good conversation. You could even split it in two, maybe. Whatever you do, what you
Yep.
want with it. I was pleased to talk with you, and I'm looking forward to talk with you again. Eat a steak.
I'd like to thank JP for coming on. We had such a great time. We are a lot alike. We like to know the root cause and finding these reasons and then fixing them ourselves, I think with natural remedies like the carnivore diet. Now, if you can, please share your story below. It really helps the community, spreads the word. There's a lot more of us out there than you think. Stay carnivorous, my friends, and a hui ho.